Ever feel like success is this thing some people just kind of fell into, like they've got this secret, I don't know, map or something? Well, today we might just find that map. We're diving into the brain pattern of highly effective people to see if it lives up to its title, you know?
Yep.
You and I are going to see if we can rewire our thinking for hopefully better results. Would you say you in?
You know, it's interesting. This book goes way beyond the typical self-help stuff. It gets into the nitty-gritty of how our brains actually work, like how those neural pathways form.
It's like we've got these supercomputers in our heads, but zero instructions, am I right? Let's talk thought patterns, because this book really hones in on how important they are.
Yeah, and one of the things that really struck me was just how much our thoughts actually influence our actions, which then obviously impact our results, like a domino effect, but It all starts up here.
So wishing for a better life isn't enough. It's about shifting how we think to actually make those changes happen, huh? It makes you wonder, what are those high achievers, those super successful people, how are they thinking differently?
Well, two big things come to mind right away: positive thinking and goal-oriented thinking. It's like they're, I don't know, programmed to see possibilities instead of roadblocks. A challenge pops up and boom, they're already turning it into an opportunity.
Didn't the book have a story about that? Something about how we use language?
Totally. They suggest we try, and this might sound weird at first, but try reframing problems as interesting situations.
Oh, I like that.
It's subtle, right?
Yeah.
But think about how that can shift your energy.
It's like you're tricking your brain to be more, I don't know, open to finding a solution. Instead of getting stuck in the negative, you're ready for action. But it's not enough to just be optimistic, right?
Yeah.
Don't we need a target too?
100%. You can't just be positive and expect things to magically happen. That's where that goal-oriented thinking is crucial. It's great to be all sunshine and rainbows, but you got to know what you're actually aiming for. The book argues that highly effective people set clear goals, and this is key, they make sure their actions actually line up with those goals consistently.
So having that target in mind, that focus, it's huge. But let's be real, our world is full of distractions. How are we supposed to stay laser focused on our goals with like everything vying for our attention?
And that's where the book's take on focus really hit home for me. We live in this multitasking world, but guess what? Our brains aren't really wired for it.
Wait, so all those years of juggling a million things at once, not helpful?
Well, not really. Every time we switch tasks, there's this switching cost. It's like your brain has to totally reorient itself every time you glance at your phone, answer an email, whatever. It's exhausting, and honestly, it makes us way less efficient.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what's the solution? We all become hermits and live in silence.
Well, it doesn't have to be that extreme. The book suggests some more, shall we say, practical strategies, like single tasking, which, even though it sounds kind of old school, can actually be more effective.
So no more juggling multiple projects at once. Tell me more about this whole single tasking thing.
So the basic idea is you give your full attention to one task at a time, especially for the important stuff, the complex stuff. They even talk about things like the Pomodoro technique, breaking down work into focused intervals.
Right, I've heard of that one, but honestly never tried it. How's that work again?
So basically, you work for a set amount of time, say 25 minutes, then you take a short break, and then you jump back in. And the book says, by working with how our brains naturally focus and rest, we can actually train ourselves to be more productive overall.
Like we're building mental stamina. But we all know work isn't just about, powering through tasks in isolation. It's about people too, right? Relationships, communication. How does all this rewiring stuff work when it comes to, the human side of things?
That's where emotional intelligence comes in, or EQ. And no, it's not just about being nice. It's about understanding and managing our own emotions, but also being aware of the emotions of those around us.
Okay, so it's not just about what we're feeling, but also being able to read the room, right? So break down, what are the key parts of this emotional intelligence?
It really comes down to self-awareness and empathy. Self-awareness is all about understanding your own emotions and how they might be impacting those around you. Think of it like having a mirror to your own mind so you can recognize your triggers, manage your reactions.
Got it. And empathy, that's about putting ourselves in other people's shoes, right?
Exactly. It's about tapping into other people's feelings, really trying to see their perspective. The book actually gives a great tip for building empathy: active listening.
Oh, I think we could all use a little more of that. It seems most people are just waiting for their turn to speak,
Right.
What makes active listening different?
It's about truly, truly hearing what the other person is saying, not just their words, but the emotions behind them. So asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you hear, really making sure they feel heard and understood.
Yeah. I can see how that would be a game changer in, well, basically any relationship. Okay, shifting gears a bit here. I'm curious about what the book says about creativity. I feel like a lot of people misunderstand it.
You're right, it's often seen as this magical thing that some people just have, this inborn talent. But the book challenges that.
So it's not just for artists and musicians.
Nope. It's about generating new ideas, finding new ways to solve problems, and just being open to new possibilities. And that's relevant no matter what you do.
Love that. So if we all have this potential for creativity, how do we tap into it? Is it just about waiting for those aha moments to strike?
Well, the book actually gets into the science of it all, and it suggests it's not just about those sudden bursts of inspiration. It takes effort, persistence, and a willingness to just try things out, experiment.
So more of a process than a lightning strike.
Exactly. And like any skill, it can be developed with practice. The book even gives examples of this in action. Elon Musk, Pixar, Tesla, all known for being innovative.
Right.
It's like they've figured out how to actually cultivate a culture of creativity and innovation. Makes you wonder, what are they doing to encourage that kind of thinking?
Yeah. What kind of habits are they building?
Well, the book talks about the importance of embracing curiosity, being willing to question everything, and maybe most importantly, seeing failure not as the end, but as a chance to learn.
Speaking of challenges, that's a perfect segue to resilience. Life is unpredictable. Setbacks, they're going to happen. What's the book's advice for dealing with those curveballs life throws our way?
That's where resilience comes in, that ability to bounce back from adversity. And it's not about being superhuman, never struggling. It's about how you respond to those inevitable tough times.
So less about avoiding the hard stuff and more about learning to take a punch, so to speak.
Yeah, I like that. The book suggests there are actual things we can do to build up that resilience.
Okay, tell me more. What are the ingredients for, like, a resilience smoothie?
Well, first, we've got to cultivate a growth mindset, which we touched on earlier. Challenges, they're not setbacks. They're opportunities to learn and grow.
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Exactly. And another big one, the book emphasizes how important it is to nurture strong social connections. We often overlook that, but it's crucial.
It makes sense, though. Having a support system, people you can lean on, that can make a huge difference when things get tough. Knowing you're not alone in your struggles, that can be really powerful.
Absolutely. The book argues that having people to talk to, people who can offer support, different perspectives, that's essential for getting through those difficult moments and coming out even stronger on the other side.
This has been so insightful already, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface of what this book has to offer. I mean, we've talked about so much, from neuroplasticity to positive thinking to focus, emotional intelligence, even creativity and resilience. Before we jump into the next part, any big takeaways you want to highlight?
What really stood out to me is how much the book emphasizes that success isn't about luck, you know? It's not about being in the right place at the right time. It's about understanding how our brains work and then using that knowledge to our advantage. It's about actually rewiring our thought patterns, building new habits, and really embracing that mindset of growth and possibility.
I love that. It's about taking control of our minds and in turn, taking control of our lives. Now, this next section is where things get really practical. The book talks about creating a personalized success blueprint.
Yeah.
Almost like, I don't know, designing the life you want based on the brain power you have.
And it all starts with taking a good hard look at ourselves.
You're talking self-assessment, right?
Exactly. It's about taking stock of where you are now. What are your strengths? Where do you want to grow? What are those habits that might be holding you back?
So, being brutally honest with ourselves, even if it's a little uncomfortable. It's about getting real with our, current brain patterns.
Yes. Once you have that clear picture of your starting point, then you can start setting those clear, specific goals.
And not just any goals, right? We've already established they need to be meaningful. Goals that actually align with our values.
Exactly. The book suggests thinking even bigger. What is your purpose in life? What kind of impact do you want to make? Your goals should be steps on that path.
I love that. So it's not just about our own success, but about contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. The book emphasizes that true fulfillment, it comes from aligning your actions with a larger purpose.
Okay, so we've done the self-assessment. We've set those big, meaningful goals. What's next? How do we actually start making progress?
That's where the action plan comes in. Time to break those big, maybe even daunting goals down into smaller, more manageable steps. The book highlights the power of keystone habits here. Those are those habits that can create positive change in other areas of your life.
So if you can master those key habits, it's like this chain reaction of positive changes.
Exactly. It's about identifying those high-impact habits and making them part of your daily routine. And consistency is key here.
It's about showing up every single day and putting in the work, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it.
Yes. The book reminds us, small, consistent actions over time, they lead to extraordinary results. It's about trusting the process.
It's about playing the long game, remembering that real change doesn't happen overnight. But life isn't always predictable. What about when those curveballs come and our plans get thrown off track?
That's where adaptability is so important. The book talks about the importance of being flexible, willing to adjust our plans when we need to. Setbacks, they're part of life. It's our ability to adapt that really determines our success.
So not about being rigid and sticking to the plan no matter what, but being open to changing course when you need to.
Precisely. It's about having that growth mindset, that belief that we can always learn, grow, and adapt no matter what challenges come our way.
I love how this book brings everything together. How it shows that success isn't just about one thing, but about this combination of skills, mindsets, habits. It's about understanding how our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors all connect, and then using that knowledge to create the life we want.
Absolutely. It goes back to that incredible power we have to shape our own brains through the choices we make, the actions we take, the habits we build.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've covered so much ground already. We've talked about neuroplasticity, a positive mindset, setting those big, meaningful goals, mastering essential skills, and creating positive habits. And guess what? We're just getting started.
There's so much more to uncover.
Stay with us as we continue to dive deep into the brain pattern of highly effective people and discover how to unlock even more of your hidden potential.
Introducing The Brain Pattern of Highly Effective People by N.D. Moses T., the #1 best-selling ebook that reveals the neuroscience-backed strategies used by the world's top performers. Unlock the hidden habits, routines, and mindset shifts that can help you achieve extraordinary results in every area of life, from career to relationships and beyond. Ready to rewire your brain for success? Don't miss out on this life-changing read. Grab your copy now with the link in the description.
Welcome back. It's kind of wild when you think about it, right? How our brains can actually change and adapt.
Right, like we're not just stuck in our ways.
Yeah.
But knowing how our brains learn, that's key. And this next section really digs into that.
It does. It gets into the nitty-gritty of the science of learning. And one of the big takeaways, it's not just about, passively taking in information. It's about actively engaging with it. It's about making those neural connections and then strengthening them through practice.
So less highlight everything in the textbook and more actually use what you're learning.
Exactly. They talk about things like active recall, where you're really trying to pull that information from memory, and spaced repetition.
Spaced repetition, I've heard of that. Isn't that the idea that we learn better when we space out our study sessions instead of cramming everything in at the last minute?
You got it. It takes advantage of the fact that our brains naturally forget things. By spacing out those review sessions, you're kind of forcing your brain to work harder to remember that information, which actually makes the memory stronger.
So you're giving your brain a workout. Use it or lose it, right?
Love it. And the book gives you practical ways to actually use spaced repetition. Say you're learning a new language or you have a big presentation. Instead of just rereading your notes over and over, you could use flashcards and space out how often you review each one.
Makes sense. So we're actively learning and mastering new skills. But how do we make sure we're not just staying in the same place, that we keep evolving and getting better?
Well, that's where this idea of Kaizen comes in. It's a Japanese philosophy all about continuous improvement through these small, incremental changes.
Small changes, big impact. So instead of trying to change your whole life overnight, it's about these small tweaks you make consistently over time.
Exactly. And what's great about Kaizen is it's less intimidating and, more importantly, it's actually sustainable. It's about finding those little areas where you can improve. Maybe it's your morning routine, the way you work, how you communicate, and then just making these tiny adjustments consistently over time.
Progress over perfection, as they say.
Exactly. But here's the thing about progress. It usually involves messing up a bit along the way. How do we deal with those inevitable setbacks, those failures? How do we keep going when things don't go as planned?
Because let's be real, we're not going to get it right every single time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have those, I wish I'd done that differently moments.
Oh, for sure. But here's the key. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey. It's about learning to see failure as a learning opportunity.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. It takes practice. The book encourages us to take those mistakes and actually learn from them. What went wrong? What could you have done differently? How can you improve next time? Turn those failures into, like, stepping stones.
Okay, I like that. It's that growth mindset we talked about, right?
Yep.
Seeing those setbacks not as roadblocks, but as maybe detours that could lead to something even better.
Exactly. Now let's talk motivation, because without it, all those plans and strategies we've been discussing, they're not going to get us very far.
So true. Motivation, that's the fuel. But what happens when we're feeling stuck, when that motivation tank is running on empty?
Well, the book breaks down motivation into two main types: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is that drive that comes from within. It's about doing something because you genuinely enjoy it. It aligns with your values. It gives you a sense of purpose. Extrinsic motivation that comes from outside factors like rewards, recognition, even fear of punishment.
So intrinsic is more about doing it for the love of it, and extrinsic is more like the carrot of the stick.
Exactly. No, both types can be effective, but the book really stresses how important it is to cultivate intrinsic motivation.
Because it's more sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Like if your only reason for doing something is to get a reward, what happens when that reward's gone?
Exactly. But when you're intrinsically motivated, when what you're doing truly resonates with you, the motivation comes from within, and you're way more likely to stick with it.
So how do we tap into that? How do we find that inner drive?
That's where things get really interesting. It's about finding your purpose. That thing that, truly lights you up inside.
The thing that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning.
Yes. And it's not always easy to figure out. The book suggests asking yourself some big questions. What are you passionate about? What are your values? What kind of impact do you want to have?
Those are some deep questions.
They are, but they're worth exploring. Really take some time for self-reflection. When you can connect your actions to a larger purpose, motivation becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural byproduct.
Like that sense of purpose fuels your motivation, which fuels your actions. It's a cycle.
Exactly. The book also talks about living with intention, making choices that align with that purpose, that vision you have for yourself.
So your goals need to be meaningful. They have to be about something bigger than just you.
Yes, it's about finding that sweet spot where your passion, your purpose, and your goals all come together. That's when incredible things happen.
Okay, so we found our purpose. We're feeling motivated. We've set those meaningful goals. Now we can make some decisions.
Right. Think about it. Every single day, we're making choices, big and small, and those decisions shape our lives. So how do we make sure we're making smart, effective decisions that align with our goals and values?
It seems like some people are just naturally good at making decisions, and others, well, maybe not so much. Is there a secret formula for making good choices?
The book actually gets into the neuroscience of how we make decisions. It talks about this interplay between, that logical part of our brains and our intuition.
So it's not just about logic. Our gut feeling plays a role too.
Absolutely. We don't always make perfectly rational decisions. Our emotions, past experiences, even our subconscious biases, they all factor in.
So there's more going on under the surface than we realize.
Exactly. And the book really emphasizes how important it is to pay attention to those gut feelings, those intuitive insights, because they can guide us. But, and this is key, it's not about letting emotions completely take over. It's about finding that balance between listening to our intuition and engaging in, thoughtful analysis and critical thinking.
Head and heart working together.
Yes. And the book also acknowledges that sometimes our decisions are influenced by something called cognitive biases.
Cognitive biases. Aren't those like mental shortcuts that can lead us to make not so great decisions?
Exactly. We all have them. It's how our brains process information quickly, but those shortcuts can sometimes lead us astray. The book encourages us to be aware of these biases and to challenge our assumptions.
So question our own thinking. Be open to different perspectives, be willing to admit when we might be wrong.
Yes. It's about being humble, recognizing that we don't know everything, and always being open to learning and growing.
So important. And speaking of learning and growing, I think that's a perfect segue to problem solving, because life is full of challenges.
Absolutely. And our ability to effectively solve those problems is essential. How do we go from feeling stuck and overwhelmed to actually finding creative solutions? How do we take action?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. The book breaks down problem solving into a few key steps. It starts with clearly defining the problem.
Which seems obvious, but I think we often jump into trying to fix things without really understanding what the root of the problem is.
It happens. It's about asking those why questions. Why is this happening? What's the root cause? Once you've got that figured out, then you can start generating potential solutions.
And that's where creativity comes in.
Exactly. It's about exploring a wide range of possibilities, even the ones that seem a little out there. Brainstorm, mind map, challenge your assumptions.
Look at the problem from different angles.
Yes. And once you've got a good bunch of potential solutions, you can start evaluating them, picking the best one. What are the pros and cons of each one? Are there any risks? Which solution really aligns with your goals and values?
Making those strategic decisions, the ones that will get you closer to where you want to be.
Yes. But here's the thing. Sometimes even the best plans don't go exactly as we expect. That's why adaptability is so important. Being willing to adjust, to pivot when you need to. Remember, setbacks, they're part of the process.
It's having that growth mindset, seeing those setbacks as opportunities.
Exactly. And speaking of growth, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something crucial for, well, not just navigating challenges, but living a happier, more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Positive thinking.
Yes. Let's talk about the power of a positive mindset. I'm a firm believer that our thoughts have a huge impact on our reality.
And the book backs that up. It digs into the science behind it and shows how powerful positive thinking can be. It doesn't just impact how we feel, it affects our physical health and even our success.
So it's not just about feeling good, it actually has tangible benefits.
Totally. The book explains how optimism can actually fuel our motivation, make us more resilient, and even boost our immune systems. It's about training our brains to focus on the good, even when things are tough.
Choosing to see the possibilities instead of getting bogged down in negativity. Looking for that silver lining.
Exactly. And the book doesn't just tell you to think positively, it gives you actual strategies for cultivating a more optimistic outlook. And one of those strategies is gratitude.
Gratitude is so powerful. It's about taking the time to appreciate the good things, big and small. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have.
And it goes beyond just feeling good. Gratitude actually impacts our brains.
Really? How so?
When we practice gratitude, when we focus on what we're thankful for, our brains release dopamine and serotonin. Those are those feel-good neurotransmitters linked to happiness and well-being.
So it's like giving our brains a happiness boost.
You got it. But there's even more. Gratitude can help reduce stress and anxiety, improve sleep, even strengthen our relationships. It can make us more resilient when things get tough.
Wow, so much power in something as simple as practicing gratitude.
Right. And the book really drives home that both positive thinking and gratitude are skills. And like any skill, they can be developed with practice. It's about making them part of our daily lives.
So how do we actually do that? How do we train our brains to be more positive and grateful? Any practical tips?
The book talks about creating little rituals.
So, like, starting each day by writing down a few things you're grateful for, or incorporating positive affirmations into your routine.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and doing it consistently. The book also talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with positivity.
So being mindful of the people we spend time with, what we read, what we watch, even what we're scrolling through on social media.
Yes. Create an environment that supports that positive mindset. And finally, the book emphasizes mindfulness being present, really noticing and appreciating those positive experiences.
Instead of letting life just pass us by, slowing down, being present.
Precisely. Train your brain to focus on the good.
This has been so inspiring. We've talked about so much. The science of learning, Kaizen, intrinsic motivation, decision-making, problem-solving, positive thinking, gratitude. It's a lot.
And we're not done yet. The book goes on to give us a framework for actually putting all of this into practice, for creating a life that's not just successful, but truly fulfilling.
Welcome back. So we've laid out all these brain-boosting strategies, but now I want to talk about how we actually use them. How do we make this stuff real in our lives?
This is where the rubber meets the road, right? The book gives us this framework, this blueprint for success, but it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's about creating a plan that works for you, based on your strengths, your goals, your values.
Okay, so it's like we're designing our own personalized system for success using the power of our brains.
Exactly. And like any good blueprint, it starts with a solid foundation. The book calls this self-assessment.
We're taking inventory, right?
Yeah.
Being honest about where we are now, the good and the maybe not so good.
Yeah, it's about being real with ourselves, even if it's a little uncomfortable. What are those patterns, those habits that might be holding us back? What needs to change?
It's like really looking in the mirror and being honest about what we see, even if it's not always pretty.
Right. Once we've done that, the book says get clear about your goals.
And not just any goals. We're talking those big, audacious goals that really light you up, the ones that align with, like, your purpose, your values.
Yes. Goals that excite you, that get you fired up in the morning. Think big here. What do you really want? What kind of impact do you want to make?
Paint that picture of the future you want to create, the future where you're not just successful, but, truly fulfilled. But I gotta say, those big goals, sometimes they feel kind of overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. And that's why the book talks about breaking them down. Remember Kaizen? That idea of small, continuous improvement, it applies to our goals too.
So it's those small, consistent actions day after day that get us to those big, life-changing results.
Yes. And remember those keystone habits, the ones that can set off a chain reaction of positive change. The book emphasizes finding those and making them part of your routine.
Okay, so let's say we've done all that. We've got our blueprint. We're working on those keystone habits. But life happens, right? What about when those unexpected things pop up and throw us off course?
Life is full of surprises. That's why the book talks about adaptability, being flexible. It's not about sticking to the plan no matter what. It's about being willing to adjust when you need to.
Like that saying, the obstacle is the way. Sometimes those challenges lead to something even better.
Right. The book says those challenges, those detours, those are often the things that lead to the greatest discoveries.
Love that. So it's not about avoiding challenges, but about using them as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. This whole journey, this personal growth thing, it's ongoing. It's not like you reach the finish line and then you're done. It's a continuous process of learning and adapting.
Like we're constantly upgrading our brains, learning new things, becoming better versions of ourselves.
Yes. And that's what this book really highlights. We have the power to do that. By understanding our brains, using those principles of neuroplasticity, building good habits, we can literally shape our brains and create the lives we want.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've talked about the power of our minds, the science of success, and we've given you some practical tools to unlock your potential.
We've learned that success isn't about luck. It's about understanding how your brain works and then using that knowledge to make your dreams a reality.
We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive as much as we have. And remember, the power to rewire your brain for success, it's all yours.
So go out there, embrace your potential, never stop learning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself.